Hey besties, my name is Mikey and welcome back for another episode of Mikey's House podcast. I think this is episode 7. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. Today is just a continuation of last week's episode, so kind of like a part 2. Last week's episode, we talked about advocacy and the importance of advocacy. This week, we're going to talk about how to be your own best self-advocate. I'm going to share my stories. We're going to talk about medical gaslighting. I'm going to share some experiences with you that I've had and kind of my journey on how I became what I would say a decent self-advocate for myself, because advocating for yourself is so important, whether you're going through health problems or just, anything in life. I've gone through lots of therapy to help me with this, but I'm going to share some stories with you guys and kind of touch on, I think, some very important topics for this week that I think kind of tie in with this theme. So today's episode is all about being your own best advocate. Whether you're dealing with doctors who don't listen, online trolls who question your own experience, which is just crazy to me, or even moments when you doubt yourself, this one is for you. So my definition of self-advocacy is being able to just stand up for yourself, knowing what's real and what's not, being able to recognize gaslighting, being able to recognize when something is wrong, and just really how to stand up for yourself. Easier said than done. I'm an extreme introvert, extreme people pleaser. It was very hard for me at first, especially with doctors. I always kind of had this weird relationship with my doctors before, where it was like they are so above me and I'm like below, and I have to listen to them, and that's it. I don't even get a say, which is not true. Now I just think of my doctors and my healthcare team as just kind of like an extension of myself, where it's like we work together to figure out this main problem, to find a solution, right? So I'm not sure why I used to think like that, but that's how I used to think, and I don't think that way anymore. Being your own self-advocate is not just about speaking up. It's not backing down when your experience is being questioned, right? So my whole life I've had lots of weird, crazy medical problems, right? But when I was 22, I started having a ton of medical problems. My epilepsy was really progressing. This is around the time where I also got my first symptoms of ALS, so super bad timing. So it was just a lot going on. I was young, so of course doctors tend to lean more towards like the optimistic side of things, especially when you're young. You might hear your doctor say like, "Oh, well, you're too young to have this," right? Well, sometimes that's not the case. But my experiences and my symptoms were heavily questioned by lots of medical professionals in the early days of me trying to find out what was wrong with me. So it really took a lot of searching within on how to be able to be stern and say, no, this is what I'm experiencing. I need help. If you're not going to help me, then I'm moving on, right? So lots of frustration I've experienced with this, lots of heartbreak, tears, anger, lots of anger. But medical gaslighting is real, y'all. It is real and it's here. And if you have been a victim of medical gaslighting or have had a doctor look down on you because of your age, or they say like, oh, you're too young for this, or well, this doesn't really happen in your age range, or this isn't really that common, like that's super rare. I am so sorry, bestie. I feel you. You are not alone. I just want to say that right now. So, I've been misdiagnosed. I've been dismissed. I've had to fight for testing. I've had to fight for second opinions, which I have been denied second opinion appointments before within like the same medical facilities as where I've got my first opinions before. It's insane. Accommodations, stuff like that I've been denied. But so first, I want to talk about how the healthcare system and the internet can make you feel small, and how self-advocacy is a way to really reclaim your power, right? So we've all been, whether we were, like kids or something, like I did not have a very traditional childhood. I was raised by my grandparents, and, so there was a huge generational gap there. Lots of misunderstandings, not seeing eye to eye on stuff. Love my grandparents. But, there were some things that we didn't always agree on, things that I knew were the right thing. And, since I was a kid, I was told, no, that's not wrong. I'm an adult. You're the child. That's not right. I'm wrong. I'm right. You're wrong. I'm right. You're wrong. I'm big. You're small. Right. So sometimes in the medical community, especially like in the chronic illness community, terminal disease, rare disease community, we find ourselves in positions where doctors have that same kind of attitude towards us, where it's belittling to us. I just want to say also real quick, trust your gut. Please trust your gut. If you know something is wrong, if you know that whatever you're experiencing is not normal, it's probably not normal, and you should try to find another doctor who will help you. But I'll get into that as well. So, doctors are dismissive. That's a fact. Most of them, some aren't. I have an amazing care team, but I had to fight for 3 years to find my doctors, and they're amazing. The internet, people are just rude. It is 2025, guys. People are creative. I have heard the craziest insults. I've read the craziest insults directed towards me in my comment sections. People are creative, and it hurts nowadays. Cyberbullying has always been a thing, but like back then it was like, oh, you're ugly. People are being fat phobic or like things like that, and homophobic. Now it's like they start talking about your hairline, your speech. I mean, they hit you where it hurts. So, it's important to be able to recognize when this is happening and not fall victim to it. It's not saying that you can't let it hurt. It hurts. Words hurt. The whole like saying like sticks and stones may break my bones, whatever. I'm a sensitive guy. I cry over everything. That's just not true for me. That's never been true for me. Everything hurts. I take everything way too personal. And that's just me. That's how I've always been. That's my personality. Just a very empathetic and emotional guy, so it's just important to learn how to stand up for yourself. And I'm going to share with you guys some personal experiences of mine that have helped me be able to get to where I'm at today. So when we think about medical gaslighting, right? Well, what is gaslighting? Gaslighting is, for example, someone saying like, oh, like, I don't remember you saying that. No, you didn't say that, when you know that you said whatever the conversation is about, right? So let's say like you're having a conversation with your friend, said, hey, I'm gonna pick you up at 4 o'clock and we're gonna go to the park, right? Tomorrow comes and this is a really bad example. Tomorrow comes and you show up at your friend's house, or you call your friend maybe before, which is what I would do, say, hey, it's 3:55. I'm about to pull up to your house. What do you mean? Oh, well, we said we're going to the park. Yeah, but you said we weren't going until like 6. No, I said 4. No, you said 6. And they're gaslighting you into thinking that you said 6. When deep down you said 4, but then you start to question, maybe I did say 6. But you didn't. You said 4 o'clock, and you said 4 o'clock. But they keep going into it, and it's like, well, maybe I did say 6. So you say, sorry, that's my bad. I'll be back at 6, right? That's probably a horrible example of gaslighting. But it's also, just when the other person knows that you said 4 as well, and maybe they were late. Maybe they just weren't ready in time by 4 o'clock by the time you got there. Maybe they were just being lazy and just didn't want to get ready by 4. And then maybe they forgot to tell you, maybe it was on them. And so to switch the narrative around, make it seem like it was your fault instead of theirs, they are gaslighting you into making you think that you said 6 instead of 4, right? So it's really on them, not on you. That's, I think, the best example I could come up with on the spot for gaslighting. That was really bad, probably. Medical gaslighting is when this happens in a medical setting, so I'll share an example. I was seeing this neurologist. He was a douchebag, literally not a good guy. I just shared this story on my TikTok. I might make a YouTube video talking about this experience, but like in full. But basically, I was going to this neurologist, and this was very early on in my journey when I first started having some like quote unquote neurological problems. So I go to this guy, right? We get to his office, and the medical assistant is like checking us in, and she's like, oh, you're gonna love this doctor. He's great with all of us. And we're like, okay, God, that's awesome. So we hear a knock at the door. The doctor opens it, and he's like, Michael Stone? And I said, yes, sir. And he's like, all right, come with me. So I look at my mom, and I'm like, okay. And so I have a cane, first off, not really walking super well these days. Those days is kind of the beginning of my mobility issues. So he leaves the room really quick, and I'm like, oh, I guess we're following him. So we get up, and I finally make it to the doorway, and I look, and he's already all the way down at the end of the hall, and he takes a right into this other room. And I'm like, oh man, he didn't even look back to see like where me and my mom were at. So slowly but surely got to there, took a right into that room, and we were in his office. So I was like, okay, maybe we're having the exam in his office. So we sit down. The first thing he says out of his mouth is, hey, so what brings you in today? I'm not going to lie. I did not have time to look over your chart. Oh, tell me why you're here, fill in the blanks. So I said, red flag, like, this was already not off to a good start. So I start telling him, like what was going on. And so in February, just backstory, in February, I had, it's called an intussusception. I had 2 of these, one on Valentine's Day and one on the 23rd of February. So I had one, was in the hospital for a week. It resolved by itself, thank God. And then I had a second one a day later after I was out of the hospital for a day. Had to come back in, was in there for a whole other week. So 2 weeks total. This like completely changed my life. It was very traumatic. I almost had to have like a very dangerous surgery with like a high mortality rate. It was very scary. I was very lucky to be alive. It was not a good time. So, this was a very pivotal moment in my life for me. I would remember everything about this moment, right? You would think. And so basically, I get to that part where I'm talking about the intussusceptions, and I'm like, oh yeah, 3 months ago, I had 2 intussusceptions. And he said, stop. No, you didn't. And I was like, what? And he's like, no, you didn't. And I looked at my mom, and my mom looked at me, and she was like her face was so funny. So I turned to him and I was like, okay, well, what do you mean? And then my mom cuts me off and she was like, so what were we in the hospital for 2 weeks for? And he was like, I don't know, but you only had one and it was in January. And I was like, okay, this is weird. So I already knew where this was going to go. Knew this appointment wasn't going to be great. I knew I wasn't going to go back to this doctor. So I just went on with the appointment, right? So I'm frustrated. It was probably showing, but he is like talking to me like I'm nothing. That was just, he was very hard about that. And we get to the part where he's about to do the neuro exam. I am the king of neuro exams. I've had like 100 neuro exams, right? I know the drill. And he looks at me and he was like, honestly, I can't examine you today because you were so anxious. He was like, it's going to affect my testing. And I was like, is the anxiety in the room with us? Because I was like, I'm chilling. We're going to Outback Steakhouse after this. I'm fine. Like there's nothing, like I had no signs of anxiety. So it was very strange, very weird. Anyway, there was some other things that went on with that doctor that it was just insane. That doctor actually ended up like falsifying my medical records, and I had to like file a huge complaint on him, and he did get in trouble. But I left that office thinking, like, did I only have one deception? Like, he really got to me. So I made it a whole big deal where I had to call like my GI office and like be like, hey, like, what did you put in your notes? Blah, 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 whatever. And they're like, this is what we sent him and sent the neurologist. And I read it and they confirmed with me verbally, and I read it and it said the 2 intussusceptions on these days, right? So I had to like message him to correct it, and he wouldn't. He was like, no, I won't do that. He said, that's not what your medical records say. And I said, yes, it is. And so I had to screenshot what my medical records said. I had to request my actual records. And then I had to send him 2 of my CAT scans, the confirming the 2 intussusceptions at the different times in February, not January. And then finally, after all that, after calling patient relations like filing a complaint on him, he finally said, I'm sorry. No harm was intended. I will make an addendum at the end of your records. It was so crazy. And he literally tried to sit there and tell me that I had anxiety, too much anxiety, wouldn't do the neuro exam, and then like falsified my medical records. That was crazy. That was a wild experience. That was not the first time that I've been told that I just had anxiety. Look at me now. Like, if this is anxiety, this is the worst anxiety I've ever seen. But no, so I'm sure a lot of us have experienced oh, well, it could just be anxiety. It could just be stress. And yeah, well, it very well could be. Stress and anxiety, mental health and physical health go hand in hand, right? Like we can definitely wish ourselves unwell. We can wish ourselves well. I have wished myself unwell before and have felt the consequences physically. So I understand, but I knew deep down that something was wrong, right? They might say, you look fine to me. Oh, you're too young. All your tests are normal. So why should we even look at the rare stuff? Right? So yeah, I'm sure some of you guys have been there too. But I've been told that numerous times. And so it was really a lot of this for about a year until like my symptoms progressed to the point where like doctors just couldn't ignore it anymore. And we're like, oh yeah, this is bad and something is very wrong. And we're going to help you now. We're sorry we didn't listen to you at first. Like that's basically like what it turned into. It was very sad. I feel like I wasted a year going to doctors and spending so much money. The healthcare system in America, insurance wise and stuff like that, is a joke. It's insane. So yeah, so I was being disbelieved by my doctors. And this is around the time that I started making content online, and I was being disbelieved online too. You know, again, people were saying like, oh, you're too young for this. Well, this doesn't really present this way and blah, 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 blah. And so, you know, that invalidation over time, especially from your doctors, it just chips away bits and pieces of your mental health and self-trust. I mean, I had so much medical trauma and anxiety that I accumulated over the course of just that year going to doctors and not being listened to. Like my self-trust in doctors was like, I had none. I had none. Now I've rebuilt it back up, especially through therapy and like finally having a good support team and care system, you know, care team. Like it's crazy how much I've had to like work to build that back up. Like it was very hard and took a lot of energy and time, about over a year. But you know, it really nips away at those things. You know, so what I wish I knew then that I know now is I wish I would have interrupted the doctor and spoke up. Um, I wish I would have said, no, you know what? This isn't right. I wish I would have voiced my concerns more. I wish I would have been more specific and not let doctors kind of summarize my feelings. I wish I was more specific and said, like, yeah, that's kind of the gist, but this is exactly what's going on, you know? So finally, I had a breaking point. I'm not sure exactly really when that was. It was maybe like a year and a half into all these doctor's appointments, but I just had it. I just was like, I'm going to find answers one way or another. It was kind of like I snapped. I kind of scared myself. So ever since that point, my snapping moment, I guess, I was very stern. So when a doctor after that would say, oh, it's just anxiety, I'd be like, yeah, I have anxiety, but it's medically induced and I'm in therapy for it. So I actually feel fine today. Thanks for asking. My heart rate was good. My vitals were good. So I don't think it's anxiety. You know, can we look somewhere else? Right? And you still get that risk of them saying no, but you keep pushing, guys. I'm so serious. Keep pushing. It is, I know it is so hard. It is exhausting. And time after time, it just builds up and feels heavier and heavier. But I promise it's worth it. You deserve the answers that you deserve, that you need. You know, don't let anybody discourage that, even from the people that are supposed to be helping you. It's not right. So I started, you know, asking different questions. I started switching up like, hey, is there a test that would actually show this? Or, you know, what could cause this? What specialists specialize in this that I should go see? Could you give me a referral? You know, I had to actually start being demanding. I had to take control of my situation and make it my moment because, you know, nowadays it takes like 6 months to a year to get it in to see a doctor to schedule an appointment, you know, even for follow-up sometimes. So you got to make those moments count. And you don't want to miss it, especially if it's in regards to your health, because things can change so fast, especially if you don't know what you're dealing with. So it's important to speak up. And I know it's hard, but just know deep down that you know, I know you know that you deserve answers and you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. Here's a couple of tips on how to take back control of your situation. Keep records, keep symptom logs, appointment notes, ask for copies of labs and all medical records. Keep track of these because these will come in handy later. You may not need them, but in case you find yourself in another doctor's office who's saying, no, this didn't happen or that's not right, you can pull that back up and say, actually, right here, this provider said this or this test showed this. Always also back up. Bring a support person to appointments. I think it's just a good idea in general, just to have someone there for emotional support. But like sometimes my memory is not super great, so I forget things. Also, if my mom wasn't there with me, like I would have felt 10 times more crazier. But like knowing that she was there with me, we both were like, no, that didn't happen. Like, you know, so that did happen, you know, so if I didn't have her there with me, it would have been a completely different story. I probably would have left feeling a lot more worse and crazier. So always bring a support person who can back you up, who knows what you're going through and can say, no, that's not right. Someone just to stand up with you if you need to. Third thing is ask questions. You know, figure out how to ask the right questions. Like, can you explain why you don't think it is? You know, if doctors are kind of being dismissive or not leaning towards how you're feeling, you know, can you tell me why you don't think this is this? Or what's deterring you from looking into this further? And don't be afraid to ask direct questions like, well, why won't you run this test? Or why won't you send me a referral to this person or for this test, this specialist? You know, don't be afraid to throw it right back and ask them the right questions, you know? Again, keep in mind, everybody deserves respect, even your asshole doctor. And again, not all doctors are assholes. I love my doctors. I love my doctors, my care team, my staff, my nurses at everywhere I go to. These are just like past experiences from throughout the years. If you've got an asshole doctor, because they exist, don't crash out. Don't let them get to you like that. Don't let them have that, But if you do, also I get it, valid. But, try to keep you chill and ask the right questions. Fourth thing is set boundaries. Sit down with yourself and really think like what you need. Like one, I need a provider who listens to me. Two, I need a provider who has experience in this, even if it's just the weird stuff. Like I need a provider who is down to sit down with me and figure this out, right? Even just as simple as that. I need a provider who's not going to give up and ship me to the next doctor. If it's out of their scope, that's fine. I understand, but I've had some really good like GPs in the past who have literally sat down with me next to me, pulled up Google, pulled up, like NIH, NHS articles, stuff like that. And we've researched stuff together. So that's possible. That happens, so really set boundaries with yourself, set boundaries with them too. If you're feeling like you're being taken advantage of, say, hey, I feel like I'm being taken advantage of in this moment. And I feel like I deserve more respect and more acknowledgement of my symptoms. And I feel like I'm being dismissed. You can say that. And last thing, trust your gut and know your body. So when I was having those two intussusceptions, which for those of you that don't know, an intussusception is when a part of your intestine literally folds into itself like those long, pirate telescopes from the movies that when it's extended, when it folds back in, that's kind of what my intestines did. It's also like folding a pair of socks. When you make a pair of socks and you fold two inside of itself, that's what my intestine did. And it was very painful and scary. So the day that it was happening, well, first off, I went to the ER the night before. Got told it was probably just a bug or COVID because I was on a plane. I thought maybe you're right. Second day, it was so bad. I literally could not even see straight. I was in so much pain. I couldn't pee. It was really weird. I could not, number two, I couldn't really breathe. I literally felt like I was in a dream. I was in so much pain. Went to an urgent care first because I was like, if it's not that bad, I don't want to go to the hospital. No. So urgent care was like, no, like well, first off, I go up to the urgent care desk and they're like, hi, how can I help you? And I said, hey, I need to be seen. I don't know why I said this, guys. This is literally a sign from the universe, I think, but or my gut. I literally was like, I think I have a blocked intestine. Don't know why I said that. And the doctor or the triage nurse is like, okay, well, what makes you say that? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I do. And she was like, okay, well, we don't have a CAT scan here. So you're going to have to go across the street to the hospital ER. And I was like, and okay, so unavoidable. So I go across the street to the hospital ER and I get in there. They take me right back. And the ER doctor in there comes in already a douchebag, right? Just a douchey ER doctor. And he comes in, he's like, all right, what brings you into the ER today? I tell him, I'm like, yeah, I'm having some pain. I'm a lot of pain. I feel dizzy. I feel nauseous, and it's just getting worse. It's kind of coming and going, but every time it comes back, it gets worse. It's in like 5-minute intervals, whatever. I was being very specific. And I was like, I was at the urgent care across the street, but they told me to come over here. And he was like, why did they tell you to come over here? I was like, I don't know. I was like, because they said they didn't have a CAT scan. And he was like, well, why would we need to do a CAT scan? And I said, I think I have a blocked intestine. And he was like, you realize it's like stomach bug season, right? And I was like, yeah, I do, but I don't think this is a stomach bug. So he lets out this big sigh and he was like, okay, well, I think it's just a stomach bug. But if you want to, I'll do a CAT scan and we will see what happens. But most likely I'll just be sending you home soon with some nausea medicine. All right, whatever. So I'm pounding 3 things of CT contrast. They send me to a CAT scan. Not even 5 minutes later of getting back to my room, that same ER doctor comes in and his eyes are wide and he is red in the face. And he goes, okay, so the ambulance is on its way to take you to a bigger hospital. You have something very rare that is not really seen in adults. It is called an intussusception. It usually happens in babies and infants. And it is a serious medical emergency and you're going to be transferred to a bigger hospital. And I literally just remember being there like, are you kidding me? I was like, so is my intestine blocked? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, all right. So you brushed me off, you dismissed me, and I was having and guys, I really don't know why I said like my intestine, I felt like I had a blocked intestine. That's so crazy because I did. Never had one before. I never knew what that felt like, but I guess I just imagined like, this is what it's going to feel like. That's what it's going to feel like. And so, yeah, trust your gut, besties. Sometimes you might be right. It's crazy. In regards to being a good self-advocate online, don't waste your energy arguing with trolls and, like rage bait. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it, guys. I get hundreds of comments, ugly, nasty comments, when I know I'm just trying to do a good thing. People are crazy. People are literally insane and psycho. Don't give them any attention. You can use keywords to block things. You can block people. Love the block button. Curate your feed. Block people, mute people. Protect your peace. Last thing on that to remember is, your story is valid, whether 10 people believe you or 10,000. Your story is valid. You have a message to share. Share that story. People are going to hate on you regardless. Whether you're terminally ill or not, people are going to hate on you, and that's just the sad fact. Don't let it get to you, besties. Be strong and continue to share your story. Be an advocate for yourself and for others. And just remember also, a lot of reminders, it's not confrontational to ask for dignity. I think that should be something taught in schools. So, real talk, being gaslit hurts, even, because your truth, so let's talk about how to, bounce back from being dismissed. Let's talk about how to rebuild your confidence. You can talk to others in your community and support groups online. There's Facebook support groups that I was in that helped me. There's, people I found through TikTok. I was searching hashtags and stuff like that. Blogs online by Googling. Get into affirmations. Start writing down some affirmations. Say them every day that, affirmations that help you reconnect to your worth. Like, I am strong. I am honest. I am going through a lot, but it's going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm a good person. Things like that. Reclaim your narrative. Make content. Journal. Speak out. Talk to a therapist. Talk to a friend. If you're not really the talk kind of person, I really recommend journaling. It has helped me a lot. I don't really do it anymore, but there was a while where I did, and it really, really, really helped me out. It helped to get my thoughts organized and just helped me sleep better. Like, I would journal like right before I would sleep because my mind would be swirling and I'd be so mad at the world and anxious and all this stuff. It really helped me out, so all things like that. Those are things that have helped me bounce back after feeling dismissed. Um, this I really want to emphasize resilience and not perfection. There's not a perfect way to be your own self-advocate. It looks different for everybody. I'm still learning things. I'm not the best self-advocate, but I try, because I know that I deserve the care that I deserve. I deserve the answers that I deserve. Period. That's it. Nothing else. I know what I deserve, and that's good care. So a couple of takeaways. You're not difficult for advocating for yourself. You are worthy of care, respect, and answers. I encourage all of you to, if you want to, share your own experiences, whether that's online or in support groups, to friends, to, again, therapists. Write down one boundary that you're going to set at your next appointment. Write down something that you want to address at your next appointment and follow through with it and do it. You have the power. This is your journey. You can't let anyone else write your journey. No one can write your story but you. So, take your moment, take your chance. Also, if you think someone who's struggling with medical gaslighting and struggling with being a good self-advocate, send this video to them. I don't know if it'll help. I don't know if these are just my experiences. I could probably be giving bad advice. I don't think I am, but I just want to reiterate, you are not alone. I want to just say to you out there that are trying, good job. Good job for showing up for yourself day in, day out, never giving up on yourself. I know it's hard. We all have moments where we're just like, I am done. I am not getting out of bed today or for the next 7 days. That's fine, babe. But we can't lay there. We can't lay there forever. I've been in my darkest days, but even on the 7th day, I'm like, all right, we got to get up. We got to do something, So you're doing an amazing job. Continue showing up for yourself. I know you care about yourself. I know that you love yourself. Continue to fight for the answers that you deserve. Continue to fight for your causes. And continue to stand up for yourself against people who are looking down on you. You're doing an amazing job. That's all I want to say is I see you. I hear you. I've been there. I still am there sometimes. It's hard, but with community, we can get through anything. So I highly recommend, if you're struggling, reaching out through support groups, other people online, a friend, a family member, tap into therapy. Therapy's in these days, guys. It's hot. Get into therapy. Yeah. So that's really all I have for today. Sorry, this was kind of a short episode. Next episode, I will be in my new studio. So I'm super excited for you guys to see the new scenery. But yeah, so we'll be back to our regular length episodes, and I'm excited. We'll be having more guests, and I can't wait to share all that with you guys. So thank you for joining us today. I'm so glad that you guys could come over and hang out for a bit. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out. It really helps get this stuff out to other people and helps fight against the algorithms and stuff like that. If you want to support this podcast more directly, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a Patreon bestie. On Patreon, I offer things like early access to episodes. So this podcast comes out on Fridays, but on Patreon, you can get it early on Mondays. I also have a separate series on there, which is basically just an extension of this podcast. It's called The Leftovers. It's kind of just where we recap and we kind of just go back into topics and talk about things that didn't make it in the episode. I have special lives on there. We do Q&As. You guys on my Patreon get first access to when I'm like, hey, what should I talk about today on the podcast or this week on the podcast? You guys get like direct, you guys get a say in it. So I love connecting with you guys on there. We have group chats on there. It's just super fun. So, and I plan on being more active on there. We're going to be doing like karaoke nights, Disney nights for watch movies together. It's really cool over there. So if that's something you're interested in, please go over there and join. It just really helps support this podcast and all my other shows and the content that I'm doing. It helps me keep sharing my story, sharing other people's stories. So if you are a Patreon bestie already, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate your love and support. It means the world to me. All right, so that is it for this week's episode. So glad to see you guys. Please remember, you are worth it. You are worthy. You deserve love, care, and support, and you deserve the answers that you deserve. Do not forget how special you are. Love yourself, love your neighbor, and I will see you when I see you. I hope everybody has an amazing week. Bye, besties.